Hey everyone, this is Nicole from Virginia Ann's Boutique. I'm coming with you today with a tutorial on the biker clutch wristlet from Ariadne by a Miss Renee Thomas. Yeah, it's so stinking cute. It looks just like a real biker jacket with a nice little lapel pocket here. You have the two zippers in the front, little zipper pockets in the front there. You have the top zipper to the main compartment, and then a nice little zipper overlay and a zipper pocket on the interior. While she does give you the pattern for a crossbody, I cheated a little bit and got a chain because I just love biker jackets and chains. I just think they go together. Yeah. I don't know. Don't hate me for it. But then I also made a little wristlet just in case. Yeah. Has the 4 little rivets there, and it's so stinking cute. I also did one in a nice melon peach, same general design. Little zipper pocket. I did not do the overlay on this one, but same concept, still pretty cute, I think. Yeah. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy. Any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Just to mention on the sizes, I did make one in the regular and then another little wristlet at 85%. Okay. I think my wristlet comes up to about 6 inches high and almost 10 inches long. And I printed this out at 85%. We're going to be doing the smaller wristlet portion because I do love that size. It's perfect. Yeah, as far as the standard one goes, it looks like this is 8 tall by a little over 12 inches, so 12.5 inches. It is your preference to do either one, but like I said, I love the 85%, and I guess you can play with it and just keep consistent on the seam allowances that you're using, and it should come out fairly decent. I did want to talk real quick about the interfacing and the material that is needed. She does specify that you need a yard of the interior and a yard of the exterior, and as well as some interfacing, as well as another yard of interfacing. But I think that's when it's a little bit lighter and you're using a cotton for your interior. For me, I'm using a little bit of canvas in this one, waterproof in the other ones that I've made before, and just overall really sturdy material in the interior. I think you can get away with using the SF101 for anything cotton. I can suggest doing a little bit of fusible fleece on the back of them. That's it makes it a little bit plush. I don't know, it's all your personal preferences, but that would be mine. A little bit of fusible fleece, a thicker material on the inside, or SF101, and that's pretty much it for the interfacing. I wouldn't do too much with that, especially if you have a domestic machine. And I've noticed as well, when you're doing the domestic machine, a little top band that I have here that just goes completely across. It's a little bit more difficult to get through all of the layers and still keep it straight. In the pattern, it lists a optional top band that you can put over top of it so that it does not kind of make the zipper wavy. So yeah, it's all personal choice. The way that I'm going to show you is without It's just like this. This is my favorite style because it just makes the collar pop up a little bit more. That's it. So for mine, I used all marine vinyl. So it's pretty heavy, sturdy, and it doesn't really need interfacing. You're more than welcome to use a little pieces of Decoville Light, maybe some fusible fleece, anything that you have really that's just non-bulky. I just don't think the pattern really needs it if you're using a thicker vinyl, especially leather, cork, or the marine vinyl like I'm using. This one I did actually put a piece of Pellon 926 in. I don't think I'm a fan of it too much. As far as cutting the pattern pieces out, for H as well as G, we had to do a mirror image of it, and for my mirrors, what I normally like to do is to take the pattern piece and cut it out once and then glue it on top of another piece that's slightly bigger, and then just sew it, cut it down, and I'll edge coat it from there. Need 2 of those. Need a pattern piece C, the left lapel there. Pattern piece A in vinyl or your exterior fabric. You'll also need the the right side, pattern piece D in vinyl as well, or your exterior fabric. Pattern piece B, it's that little side there. Pattern piece E, and this is the middle, goes right in the center. Your zipper overlay. Then you'll also need a zipper tab 1. I actually cut mine to 1 inch, 1 by 2 inches. I'm also opting to do the wristlet version, so I cut my wristlets based on my hardware that I have, and that is 13 inches by 2 across. And I also just cut down my zippers to 7 inches each, and then I also have the 1 12-inch for the top. For the lining, I'm doing an additional pocket. They required 8 by 12, and I have the 2 because I'm doing another zipper pocket on the outside. And I'm also using waterproof canvas, if I didn't mention that. You need 2 pieces of the pattern piece A, cut out in your lining fabric as well. You'll need 2 of the 6 by 9s for the zipper pockets in the front. What you're gonna need in hardware, I'm actually going to opt out of doing the crossbody strap in fabric, and I purchased a little chain from Amazon, and I'll post the links to this in the description. I'm going to be needing 4 zipper sliders. They do say that you can get away with using the size 3s, but I'm going to use all 5s because that's what I have. I'm also doing 2 side anchors, and that's from Ning bags, and I'll post the link to those as well in the description. Then I have my 1-inch key fob hardware, nameplate, whoop, wrong direction, nameplate, and then I have a little bit of stabilizer, the Peltex, to go right behind it. Yes, I also do need rivets. We only need 4, but I have them set up like that already. It is optional, but it is highly suggested to get some Giardini edge coat just for around the collar area. And that's it. Okay, so doing a little bit of prep work before we start sewing. What I like to do is work on the wristlet straps first, and I do like to do the double sided ones. What I like to do is mark the halfway line on these, place some double-sided stick tape, from Waywack, across the center, remove the tape, and fold up the sides to match either side of that line. Then what I like to do is take another strip of double-sided tape, run it down the center, center it up, up, up. One of my pieces are too short, but we'll fix that. Centering it. And now this piece is ready to be sewed down on both edges, and we'll do that together in a second. Another thing I'd like to do for prep is to draw out that little box on pattern piece A. So I'll fold the lining in half, the pocket lining in half, and then just mark the inside of it, of the pattern piece. And then the way I do it, I have stop and start. Let's see if we can get that closer. I have stop and start markings here, and I'm going to show you why in a sec, but those are 1/2 inch from either edge. And for all the pieces, I am marking where the rivets are supposed to go, and I'm going to punch those out momentarily. What I do like to do with any of my zipper openings is kind of fold them. If I'm using vinyl, I'd fold them over and then just take a lighter and burn off some of that fuzzy fabric, just so it's a nicer edge finish, without me having to edge coat them. I'm just going to do that on both, and then as well as the, let's turn this backwards, as well as the zipper overlay here. And you can do it around the top as well if you're not afraid to burn yourself. Be very, very careful with this. And then what I also did was fold it in half and mark the centers on this. That one is done. And now for the top collar, I like to take a little bit of Fabric-Tac Beacon and run it just around the edges of this piece. Just make sure you get right up to the corners. Let's get that in the view. And if you want, if you know that your vinyl can handle it or your fabric can handle it, you can do some strokes in the center, just so the whole thing is adhered well. My only focus is really around the edges, so I know that those won't come up at any time later. And then what I do is just take it and hopefully then I'm also going to do this a pattern piece G. Filming, I'm going to just go ahead and cut this out. You can also top stitch this first before you start cutting it. So I just like to do it this way because for me, I never cut the same piece out correctly twice, even though I will take my pen and try to mark out the same area. It always helps a little bit more if I just do the mirroring thing the way that I just demonstrated, and instead of doing two of the same pieces cut out already and gluing it together. Okay, now I'm going to finish up the wristlet that we had previously prepped. What I'm going to do, give me this, let's take my threads from the machine. I'm going to turn this up to a top stitch, and I'm using maybe 4 to 4.5 to do this. And I'm just going to run 1/8 of an inch around the outside. You know, I think I'm just gonna do another line. I'm gonna cut these off first before they get in my way. I think this will look really nice with 2 bands. I'm just running it along the left side of my foot. So my foot is about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just gonna stay 1/8 of an inch away from that previous stitch. I'm going to clip off the edges. I think I misaligned in the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to take my hardware and a little bit of glue. I don't know why I do this. I feel as though it makes it stronger, so I just keep doing it. Rub the glue right along the edges. I normally give this some time to sit, but in the object of time, I'm going to just go ahead and put it on. Some of the glue is seeping out to the top there, and I kind of like to use that to secure it better to the Fob hardware. First thing I want to do though is to find which side I like the best, and I think it's going to be that side. Shove this on, right side of that fabric to the pretty side of the Fob hardware. Stick that in. It may take some finagling to get over those spikes, but once you got it in there, take the little pliers that comes with most of the kits for these, and I'll post a link on Amazon, and you just grip them. I push this in a little bit more so I have better hold, and then just crimp it. And once for good luck. And then your Fob hardware is complete. The next thing I want to do is to take this top band here and then the left lapel and top stitch around here and all around the top here. I normally don't need to sew down this area, this area here, but I'm just going to do it for good luck. Okay. Sorry, it cut off there, but I'm gonna just take the fabric marker and proceed with coloring it down, or painting it down that edge. pretty decent to me. And I'll set that aside to dry. Now for the fun part. Take the little Giardini base coat. If I can open it, goodness. Wonderful. Just clean that now. And I have one of these little rollers here. I don't know why I like to use the one without the point, but it's just been my best friend this entire time. Just gonna take a little, rub some base coat around the outsides. You can either set that aside to dry, or someone had told me a while ago to take little Clover Clips, clip around the bottoms, and then you can just set it to the side. That's too stinking cool. And then you just continue to pattern piece H just around the top edges that are going to be showing. And if you have a little bit overlapping on the top, you can always take a little rag and just wipe around the top or wherever it is. Just clean it up. And we'll try to set this aside the same way. So the first thing I like to do is to take pattern piece D and B and work on the zipper pocket panels on the front. And like I said before, I did use 7-inch cuts of zipper tape by the yard, and I'm just gonna trim that down. I give myself a little extra because sometimes I do put my zipper tabs on a little bit crooked. Not this time. But then I'll just take it, line it up, see where my zipper ends, and I'll just snip it off here. Whatever is a little bit extra. And then burn the edges, just to seal it in place. Great. So then I take my Fabric-Tac and then glue around the box opening. And I know that this is a little bit different from the way that the instructions tell you, but I do have a couple of more zippers in this version that I'm doing, and I will show you how it's explained in the pattern on one of those. Okay. And then I know that how I'm lining this up, I know that this little bottom here, the little rounded edge, is the bottom, and my zipper should be facing towards the top, so I'm just laying it down over top. Hopefully not getting my zipper all sticky. And I'm just lining that up in there, repositioning where necessary. You also can get away with using some double-sided stick tape. I just don't, because I feel as though it's a little bit extra security when you glue it, but I could be wrong. I haven't done it without, and it has been a problem, so you can do that however you like. It's just my preferred method to do it like that. That's good enough for me. Okay. And then what I like to do is to line this up on the bottom, but I am going to use tape this time because this likes to move on me, and what I do is get it out of the way, and I might as well just stick double-sided tape on the bottom and the top of that zipper on both of them. I like to start with them up, right sides up, and then the edge of your lining part, and this is the 6x9. I like to have them both right sides up and lining them up with the bottom portion of this zipper pull. And I know it looks a little strange because I have a lot more on top and on bottom than you probably would, and that is because I have opted to do a 85% on my print on this pattern. I was just gonna do a smaller version just to see how it would look, test it out a little bit. So I will just trim this down when I do my pockets, when I finish them. And I'm gonna just do the same on this side as well. So the bottom is here. Taking that, just laying it up. And you can do it from this angle. This probably is a little bit easier to do it like that. And I did that the wrong direction. Wonderful. So there you go. That helped. Now what I'm going to do is take both of these edges. Sorry, let me turn them together. I'm going to take this edge, sew it, this edge, sew it. And then I do not backstitch at the stop and starts because I'm just going to pull those threads to the back and hopefully tie them off if I left myself enough room. Flip them both over. Oh, I'm gonna have to show. Okay, so what I do is take the thread that's sticking out, pull it up until you see a loop, and then you can take your fingernail or pair of scissors, your thread pullers, whatever you want to do, and then just yank it up so you have the two threads showing on the back, and then take it and tie it off. Just do a couple of knots. And I like to burn my threads a little bit. I don't know if that'll help me or not, but burn them and stick them down a little bit just around the knots. So I'm not actually burning them, I'm heating them, melting them a little bit, so it's like a weird thread glue, you know? It just feels like it holds it better. Then I take it, both of the linings, fold them down, crease them with my finger a little bit, and then remove this top and line them up. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. What you can do is position your needle right where you ended your stitches at and lower it hand crank it into the last stitch that you had made in the previous step. Hold on to your threads. Stop. Move your zipper pull. Then I'm stopping right where I started before. Need some healthy threads. Do the same along the top. I'm pulling them to the back and tying them off like we did before. Okay, next step is we're going to sew up both of these sides just to close up this zipper pocket. And I'm going to take a hefty seam allowance just to match it up to the sides of my exterior fabric. And I also like to backstitch over my zippers, my zipper tape, just to keep them together a little bit better, some extra security. And I'm just going to snip off all that extra fabric that I have right along the side. And there's your little zipper pockets. Now if we did these right, should be able to open them and stick your hand inside of them. If not, stop here and redo that. Okay, now that the base coat has dried, what I want to do is take my sanding sponge and then just gently go around the outside just to smooth it out just ever so slightly. It's tedious, but trust me, if you miss this step, you'll feel it. So what you're looking for is nice and smooth. If you find any ridges, bumps, or anything like that, I would consider going back in and possibly doing another layer of the base coat, or sanding it down if you need to, depending on your situation. Just do that on both of them. I like the brick a little bit better than the actual sandpaper, only because it's a little sturdier, so if I want to get lazy I can actually do this and shave it down like that. But that's good. If you want, you can take your towel and wipe off some excess before we add the color, which is going to be black. So we're doing it in the exact same way. Pop. into it. Just have a little finger. Nice and easy. I'm applying a very thin coat. I'm trying not to rock back and forth on this, but I don't know, I'm just having a little bit of a off day with my edge painting. Please forgive me. It's like you want to say, I know how to do this. I know I do. So I'm going to leave this off to the side again to dry. I hope I don't knock this over. So now we're going to do the zipper pocket portion of the lining. What I did was fold it in half, and I have that little halfway mark right there. I'm going to keep this facing up, and then this piece is the 8 by 12 that we marked that little box in. I also did the halfway mark here, and I'm just going to line that up halfway as well to the halfway mark. I'm just going to clip this in place because I don't want to use pins on waterproof canvas. So for this, we're going to use a 4mm stitch length all through here, and then when you get to the little stops at the halfway, the half-inch mark, then we're going to gradually lower it down to go around these curves. And then again, we're going to pick it back up 4mm. Three, I would say, maybe 2.5mm around this curve, and then you backstitch, and then you're done. What that does is this creates a little bit of a crispy edge around the corners, just so it's no more puckering around the outsides. Okay. Four. I'm gonna backstitch a little. 4. Gradually decreasing. Turn. And now I'm gonna go back up to that 4. Start decreasing. Then we're going to cut the threads. Where is my scissors? I know everybody's done this. Oh no. Okay. Now what I'm going to do just take this, you can remove it, and you fold it, just line them up and snip it down the middle. And go in. And kind of draw an imaginary line and stop. Do your triangles, get right up to that corner. Don't cut the threads, but right to it. I'm going to do the same for the other side. Okay. And then you take this wrong side and feed it through. It may take some work, but there you go. And then you can finger press this, you can iron it. It all depends on really what kind of fabric you're using and dealer's choice. I'm just going to take it and use my roller for right now, see if that'll work. So I have a little bit of puckering on this side. I don't know if you can see that on around these sides here. So what I'm going to do is go back in and snip some more of that corner away. Hopefully that'll do the trick. Slightly better, but I'm gonna take this over to the iron and try to press over the top. So I gave up and just took the piece of material back to my ironing board, and I'm just gonna press it out a little bit here. Just to make sure it stays extra flat. Now you can use a glue or double-sided stick tape for this, but I'm a big fan of Fabric-Tac. What we're going to do is insert the zipper into this opening. I personally like my zipper to be facing left when it's closed, and this is how I'll do it, face up. You can do it around the zipper tape itself, but I like to turn this around to the wrong side of the lining, where the lining pocket is now facing, and then just glue around the outside window. And I'll take it and just lie that on top and position it as best you can. What we're going to do is sew around this entire box here, and that'll keep the zipper secure. Now we're just going to pull threads to the back. Okay, so for the next step, what we're going to do is fold that lining up. You can clip it if you need to, just around the outside, and sew around these three sides. And because I am going to be turning my lining through the zipper pocket, what I'm gonna do, you don't need to do this at all, but I like to take a couple of inches off to the side and then start, just so I can cut this part open, because I have the one continuous piece, so I'd have to cut this part open and then start sewing the lining through. Just show you what I'm talking about. Back stitch. I'm not really using a seam allowance here, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So the only reason why I give myself a little bit of starter here is because when I fold it and start when I take this lining and turn it inside out, I like to have some sort of base shape in order before I start sewing it. I don't know, it's just personal preference, but it just helps me to not get a wonky shape around the edges if I already have them in place. And so I'm just gonna take my scissors and just cut myself an opening at the bottom. You can also do the 12 by 6 that she suggests in the pattern. I just like to sew it up in one piece and then just take it, pull the lining out, and sew over top of it later on. But again, it's your personal preference. Okay, so this side of the lining is complete, and now for the other side. This is not in the pattern. I just have some extra material that I was trying to get rid of. It's a 5 by 14.5, and I'm just gonna try to make a little card slot out of this one. So what I'm gonna do is first, we're scrapping it. Okay, so I figured that wrong. So I'm just gonna top stitch this and turn it into a slip pocket. I can get that out of there. Come here. So now your two linings are finished. Okay, so this is an extra step that I'm going to be doing. I'm taking the outside panel A, fold it in half, find a little center mark, and then measuring about 1.5 inches down from there. Then I also have the little, we can do 1.25 inches. And then line that up with the center. Going to be using my favorite little Fabric-Tac. Just to keep this in place. That looks about right. Now what I'm going to do is top stitch around the outside perimeter of this. Now it's a little bit crooked, but no one is really going to see this part. Okay, so now we're going to take our glue. Now I'm going to take my last 8x12 piece, and I'm going to put this back over just so I can see what I'm saying. Don't ask me why I change back and forth. I'm just crazy that way. Line the bottom up with the bottom, flip it back over, and then just sew across that bottom. It's gonna go around here. So now what we're gonna do is just close off this this zipper pocket, and that's just by going. And I just kind of make sure just to get that zipper tape and be able to backstitch over it. I find that using these pinking shears don't leave such a dent in the front, so you can't really see it too much. So now this little zipper overlay pocket is complete. Okay, so now we're going to put the main body together. The first thing we're going to do is take pattern piece G and E, fold them together, and find the centers. And we're going to line them up along those center marks. Like that. And you can clip them in place. I'd like to turn it onto this side with E facing up, because you would have to then take 1/4 of an inch off of each as your start and stop points. And you're going to sew that together with, baste it together with 1/8 of a seam allowance. Okay. Should have a piece that looks like this, and now from those 2 little slits that you made, you would take your pattern piece G, the top band, and fold it over. It wants to fight you a little bit, so it may take a little elbow grease. And then the same for the opposite side. What I find sometimes helps me is to take by those little corners and just snip right up to the stitches. So it lays a little flatter. Then you would baste up both sides with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So if you kind of put your thumb in on those slit areas and push, you can kind of see it starting to take shape. Okay. The next thing we want to do is to take this side and lie this matching up to the bottom. And baste this in place with 1/8 of a seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch. Forgot to do this part, but you're going to take this zipper tape and fold it at a 90-degree angle and stitch that in place. You can hand baste this if you can't do it on your machine. So we're going to take your zipper and line it up to that left lapel. I try to run my zipper tape off the edge right at the top stitching that I've done, because that's at the 1/8 of an inch mark. And then just try to clip it in place. And we're just going to baste this in place at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If it is easier for you, you can choose to not add your zipper pull on at this point. You can wait until you finish putting together the front panel entirely. But for me, I just go ahead and put it on. It's not my way, and I've actually, this is the last bit of my zipper tape, so it's extremely long. Just felt like I was going to waste it. Okay, and from here we're going to take pattern piece D. Move the zipper pocket out of the way. You can clip it or just move it out of place. I'm just going to choose to clip it. We're going to line it right up to this edge. It has to line up with the bottom of this pattern piece E here. So like this. This is the front, and your collar is out of the way. You just fold it over. So this is what you have: zipper, collar, zipper, pattern piece D, and we're going to baste that together at a 4-inch seam allowance. Once that's done, you can flip it back over to the right side and top stitch this at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So your piece should look something like this now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take pattern piece G. I like to line this up with the side up until this point. Fold it out of the way. Take a clip temporarily, because for some reason I always get this one stuck. Then I lay pattern piece C right over top of that and try to sandwich the bottom portion of GC and this middle portion E together. It'll be kind of difficult. And then you're going to notice a little bit of overhang, and that's okay. Just follow the best you can over pattern piece C. You can take that off, and it should look a little something like that. We're going to take this part of the ruler, this part of the zipper tape, and go away from the top about 1/8 of an inch. You can use glue or tape on this one. I'm just going to use a little tape. And just line it up with the wrong side of the zipper tape facing up towards the wrong side of pattern piece C. Just want to line it up so it's even all the way around that top. And then you can take another piece of tape and go across the back. Trying to keep that same distance that we had on the front of pattern piece C on pattern piece B. Okay, and then from here we're supposed to do a 1/8 seam, 1/8 top stitch around this edge. As soon as I clip this out of the way. We should still have something at least like that. I'm going to flip this back over, getting this pocket piece out of the way, because we're going to take this off too now. We're going to fold that jacket flap down a little bit. I have a little glue there. I'll get that off in the end. But we just flip this up right around that seam. And we'll sew this down with a 1/8 seam allowance here. Okay, now your front piece should almost be done. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to punch the rivet holes from the pattern pieces in. And I just copied that real quick with a silver marking pen. Just take it and just make sure there's nothing else behind them before you start punching holes. And because my vinyl is so thin, we're just going to move that to the side. Because my vinyl is so thin, I'm going to use a little bit of foam. So I'm going to take some small little pieces, just because the rivets that I have are 9mm, and they're way too big for these holes, or for the vinyl thickness rather, I'm sorry. Just gonna so I like to do them in twos, just because the thickness of 2 of these plus the vinyl would be the perfect size for the rivets that I'm using. Get my rivets out. I'm going to put one in here, and then there's 2 holes on this front panel. I'm going to go with the upper one. Take 2. So maybe. I'm going to run some edge coat around here as soon as everything is put together. You can do that before, but I just find it's a little bit easier to pull it out a little bit and then just edge coat it from here with the double, with the 2 sides of fabric together instead of the single. It just looks a little bit nicer for me. Not easier, just looks nice. Like something. And after all of that struggling and fuss, my zipper still ran away. Let's see if we can find it. So the front panel is now complete. I'm going to take just an extra little step and add my hardware right in the middle part here. I like to do is first make sure I get this off. What I'm going to use is a extremely light color, and then just rub it right along those prongs, just so I can make an indentation. I know where to cut. And to be honest, I'm a little terrible at this, so I'm eyeballing it. I'm normally pretty good with eyeballing. Then I'll take that Peltex and line it on the back. Take a little blade. Just make a lot of people will take some duct tape and go along the backs of this. I'm just gonna leave it alone for now. And I will take my rivets and set them. And we are almost done. So now you have your front panel all complete. Okay. You have the front, the back, your zipper pocket lining piece, and then this weird one that I was trying to put a slip pocket in and messed up on. It's not necessary to do the pocket at all. So what I'm going to do is take my zipper, because I didn't prep it, and do my 90-degree turns again. And stitching those in place. Now this one you actually have to line up. It just helps to close the top part of the zipper a little bit. Okay. So because I reduced my pattern size, I am going to have to use some math. Try to figure out how long my zipper is supposed to be, where it's supposed to go. 1 second. Here we go. So because I know that we're gonna sew this final portion together with a 1/4 seam allowance, I'm gonna do maybe 3/8 to a 1/2 inch away from this corner, and then just mark, as well as the other side. And I'm just gonna line this up to see where I need to cut. And then I actually measure it. Here's my line, and I'm gonna cut just slightly less than that, just so it has some room for the zipper tab that I'm about to put on. And then because my vinyl is still very thin, I'm going to find a halfway mark, fold it in half towards the middle, and fold it again around the zipper tape. And then top stitches about 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Then from the top, I like to start from this part here, fold it down a little bit, get it out of the way. And if you notice anything that's a little skewed, you can take your scissors and cut it off. So that's going to get in my way later. So we're going to mark where our zipper is supposed to go on the front panel first. Sorry about that. Or you can mark the centers. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to line this up the best I can. Should look a little bit something like that. And I'm going to place my zipper right side down. I'm still going to base this in place at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And for the top, I'm going to take this. Your piece would be the one without a pocket piece. It would be just plain. And just lie that right side down. And then flipping it around the edges a little bit. And sewing this together with a 1/4 seam allowance. I'm back stitching over where I can feel the collar attaching, just for some added stability, just so it doesn't separate and the threads don't show. Did notice a little shifting, so I may go back over that. Yeah. I'm gonna go right back over this piece only because my lining shifted a little bit. You can take it back off and do it again, but I'm just gonna get a little closer just so it's even all the way around. And for the fun part, just gonna stick it out a little bit. I'm gonna try our best. If you have cotton, this will be a little bit easier. You can iron this down. But because I have waterproof canvas, though I can iron it, I don't really like to unless I have to iron it down. So what I'm just gonna do is stretch it a little bit. I just need a little clip on my ends, just because I know I don't pay attention enough. Okay, so now we're going to top stitch this across the top at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Just make sure that you try to keep this lining facing the opposite direction. Everything's stretched out down this way. And then go slow if you need to. Lie this right on top of the front panel, lining up the edges and clipping that in place. I'm just going to do an 1/8 inch basting. Then we'll place the zipper panel right side down over top of the zipper, and we're going to clip this in place and then top stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's going to be a little easier to top stitch. We'll run the 1/8 inch seam allowance top stitch along the top of the back panel now. And I'm not back stitching at the beginning or ends, because when I go to sandwich them all together, sometimes I'll even pick out some of those stitches that I had top stitched all the way to the end, just so there's not a pucker. Or you can start and stop within that seam allowance that you're going to have, to avoid having to pick stitches at the end. I just think that it's easier for me to remember. Okay, we're almost done. We're going to make sure the zipper is at least halfway open. This zipper hole is inside of our pocket so we don't catch it in the seam allowance. Flip the top panel up to meet the back panel. You can start clipping those in place. And then just make sure that this little seam here line up. You can push it towards the lining if you can, and this is why a lot of people don't stitch it all the way to the top, and you would just take a couple of these stitches here out so it can press towards the lining a little bit better. Another trick I've seen to keep that the joining together is for you to put some double-sided tape along that seam allowance, and it should stay in place a little bit better, and it's not shifting around when you move like the clips will. And now we're going to close up the wristlet. What we're going to do is leave about a 5-6 inch opening around the bottom to turn. We are going to try to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the interior, and then a 1/4 seam allowance for the exterior, just so that it can, the lining can lay nice and taut on the inside without so much wiggling or slack. do like to go around the vinyl again, second time, just for a little added stability. I'm not going to trim that zipper, so I'm just going to move it out of the way. I'm also not trimming this little edge here that we're going to be turning our bag inside of. One for me. Okay. You know what? We'll put a little tape here. Normally I like to sew it down, but I'm doing this a little bit late. Hopefully it doesn't fall off and start rolling around in here.
Turn it. It does help to heat up this material. So if you have a steamer or something, or an iron, just run some heat near it. I'll touch it with the heat, and it'll soften it up, and then you can turn it out easier.
So there's not really a lot of slack in there, and I'm happy with the way it looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and close up this lining. Open up the zipper pocket that we left open. I'm going to reach in. If you want, you can reach in with this hand inside of the zipper pocket and this hand in the main lining. When you touch your hand here, grab that fabric that's in the right hand and pull it through. And it'll take some finesse to get it on out. Once you got your lining out, just finish sewing on here with that same seam allowance. So now your lining is closed. So now the next step is to close up that zipper pocket. Pull it back out a little bit. Remember how I left those little notches? It kind of helps to fold them in just to see the general shape. So it can easily fold in to itself. Sew this lining shut. Stuff that pocket back in. Close it. You can get a little iron in there. Steam that out a little bit. It'll soften up that fabric and it'll kind of melt into a nicer shape. Let's see if I can get some better light. Okay. back out. And you're finished. Isn't that just adorable? Here's my wristlet strap. So we can add this to the top, little zipper piece here, or what I'm gonna do is take these side connectors and attach them. One. Okay, so they're pretty good. And now, we can add the chain or your crossbodied attachment, whichever one you decided to go with. That baby is done. This is such an awesome little pattern here, and I do want to say again that I appreciate Renee over at Crafty Creates for giving me the opportunity to test and to videotape this tutorial for you. I hope you guys got something out of this and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.